Thank you, Chancellor. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Mastro, and I have the distinct honor and privilege of representing the 465,000 students of SUNY as President of the Student Assembly. The Student Assembly is the single recognized voice for our students, essentially the SUNY-wide student government. In the same way all of you speak for your constituents, I speak for the students of SUNY. Each of our 64 campuses elect a certain number of delegates depending on their enrollment, who represent them to the SUNY Student Assembly. And having been elected by my peers from across the entire system, my testimony in support of the renewal of New York SUNY 2020 is being given, not on my behalf, but on behalf of all of my peers. And it's worth reminding everyone here that the outcome of this discussion and your vote affects me and my student colleagues here today more than anyone else in this room. Some critics have attempted to paint this support as students standing in favor of tuition increases. I am disappointed by this interpretation as it has grossly misrepresents our position. At the Student Assembly Spring Conference last year, a resolution was put forth supporting the renewal of a fair, equitable, and predictable tuition plan. This plan passed 59-4-1. Let me repeat, 59-4-1, a remarkable majority. Even after 5 years of tuition increases, SUNY students who were elected by their peers voted overwhelmingly to renew the plan. Our student leaders spoke with a loud, clear, and unified voice. They said we cannot afford to be left in the dark. They said we cannot afford sporadic and unpredictable tuition hikes. They said we want our SUNY system to continue on its path of extraordinary success. The Student Assembly's support of this resolution does not come unconditionally, another point often overlooked. The Student Assembly would not vote in favor of a plan which did not call for the guarantee of a true state maintenance of effort. Yes, I recognize that you have maintained support as it was written 5 years ago. New York State has lived up to a statutory obligation, sort of. But if the students are willing to invest more into their education, so too should their elected leaders. It is time that the state paid its fair share. The Student Assembly's support of a plan including continued commitment to ensuring that our tuition dollars stay on our campuses. And the Student Assembly supports a plan that keeps the discussion surrounding our tuition within the body that best understands the needs of me and my 465,000 peers. As a fellow elected representative, I understand how difficult it can be to explain certain decisions to your constituents. But a renewal of New York SUNY 2020 is a renewal of fairness, a renewal of equity, and a renewal of predictability. It is my sincere hope that you take that into consideration when making your final decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. It's always a privilege to be before you. We welcome your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've been joined by Assemblyman Sturpey, Assemblyperson Harris, and Mr. Oakes.
Yes, also Assemblywoman Maliatakis.
First to question, Deborah Glick, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Farrell. Good to see you all. In relation to the SUNY 2020 and the proposal to expand that going forward, has there been a change in the economic demographics of the student body at the various campuses? Are you seeing that there's been a diminution of those who are at different economic strata?
Do you want to say for community and then for comprehensive? Ann?
Sure. I can start first with the community colleges. What we're seeing is actually part of a national trend, which is that many of our students will go to work if they can find employment. And so with the recovery of the economy, we see some of our lower, especially lower income students, really foregoing education in order to go to work. And so I think across most of our institutions, we're seeing fewer low income students. We're also seeing fewer Pell Grant recipients simply because they've been able over the past couple of years to accumulate some financial resources, which does impact that. But otherwise, what we're really seeing is not a significant change in our demographics overall, except for, honestly, we're seeing more underprepared students.
Robert or Kristen?
Yes, Assemblyman Glick. I'd just like to add that University of Albany, what we're have observed is that we're probably running pretty constant in terms of the number of our students that are Pell recipients at about 40%. But what's interesting is that we have seen a very dramatic increase of the number of students that are first-generation students. Currently, it stands at about 40% of our students are first generation. And our student of color numbers, underrepresented students, is going up on an annual basis. Currently, it stands at about 34, 35%, but with the last 3 entering classes, about 40% of those students have been students of color.
Thank you. Now, how much capital needs actually do exist? Obviously, and how much could the system, across its many different campuses, how much could you spend in a year? Because there's obviously contracting requirements and so forth. So I'm just wondering, my estimate is that the capital needs are well underfunded in this budget, but by how much and how fast could you spend? Should we be able to write a blank check? What actually could you spend in the course of a year?
Bob Halen?
Hi, I'm Bob Halen, Vice Chancellor for Capital Facilities. When you look at SUNY in its entirety, as we look at it into components, and if I look at just the state-operated campuses alone, they make up about 60 million square feet. We're looking at a current backlog of needs of about $3 billion, $3.2 billion. In our capital budget request, we asked for $600 million a year over 5 years. We're looking at our state of decay, so to speak, or depreciation, and around that $600 million mark. And if we wanted to be more transformational with our investment in capital, we had asked for an additional $200 million per year for a total of $800 million per year. At our peak with the program, we had spent $1 billion, over $1 billion. So that speaks to our capacity. We think an $800 million investment is something that is achievable, and we have the people to do it. There's only so much work you can take on at any given campus, but across the board, there is tremendous needs and the ability to meet those needs.
Thank you. This jumps around a little, but the SUNY hospitals have been, which are, in my opinion, very important to the regions in which they exist, have been cut rather dramatically over the last 5 years. They are cut once again by the $18.6 million that we added last year, and I'm wondering what kind of impact, not just adding, if we were to add the $18.6 million, that just brings you back to where you were. What is really the projected need in our ability to have you serve the regions in which the hospitals exist?
Eileen,
Yep.
introduce.
Yep, hello, I'm Eileen McLaughlin, the CFO of SUNY System. Good day to everyone. All 3 of our hospitals actually operate at a slight operating loss even after state support. I don't know what that exact number is, but I will give it to you. The $18.6 million is just going to aggravate or increase that loss.
Okay, well, get back to us with some
Okay.
greater
Yes.
specificity about that. In this round of SUNY 2020, you've hired 919 professors, I believe. If there isn't an increase going forward, if you were no change in the funding from student tuition, what would be the impact on those new hires?
Well, we continue to grow. We've developed high-demand programs that meet the economic needs of the state. We don't always have the faculty in place to do that, so we hire new faculty to person these on-demand programs. So we'll slow down. We won't be able to meet the needs of the students. And I want to say, one of the absolute commitments we made when NY SUNY 2020 was passed is that every dollar would go to support student programming, access to faculty, access to student services, and I dare say that's why the Student Assembly is so supportive of this effort. So all of that falls by the by, and you know we've made this incredible pledge to graduate more students, to get more degree completers. All that capacity will be diminished. And there's one other thing I want to say at this point, which is I think a lot of people are looking at the way New York State has supported public higher education through NY SUNY and NY CUNY 2020. This is a concept as much as it is an investment. And it also speaks to the fact that tuition increases with a cap are less necessary when the state makes more investment.
The maintenance of effort that was baked into the original SUNY 2020 turned out to have some shortcomings. The legislature in both houses in near unanimous votes put forward a stronger, more vigorous maintenance of effort, which was vetoed by the governor with the message that it really needed to be discussed within the context of the budget. Do you have an estimate for SUNY what a broader, more robust, what would have been the advantage to SUNY had that legislation been passed? Or what do we need to be looking for in this budget relative to the maintenance of effort?
Well, I think the critical ask is around negotiated salaries, and Eileen could probably give you an exact number, but it's in the $70 million range.
70 million for our collective bargaining, 134 million that we've absorbed so far, as well as about 8 to 9 million of utilities costs that goes up, or some of the fixed costs that our state-operated campuses absorb. And of course, the community colleges also absorb a lot of their fringe benefit costs and does not get that indirect support from the state.
Thank you. I'm almost out of time. We started last year a STEM scholarship program for a full ride for students who are in the top 10% of their high school classes. I don't know that it's well known around the state. We've done what we could to recommend to our colleagues to get it out there. Has there been, have you seen an increase in the number of students who are coming to SUNY as a result of this offering?
Kristen?
In our campus, we've seen dramatic growth in students studying biology, chemistry, and computer science.
This is also a campus that's put the A in STEM, so one of the things the president likes to talk about is STEAM, so that we don't overcorrect for the STEM fields without acknowledgement of the arts and humanities.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you very much. My time is 10 seconds away from, so I will end now, and perhaps there might be a follow-up later.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson, for allowing Bob Halen to talk about Capitol. That means I can go home safely.
Thank you.
Senator?
Thank you. And I do want to announce that Senator Diane Savino had joined us. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Senator Ken LaValle, who is chair of the Higher Education Committee in the Senate.
Chancellor, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Since I get to talk to you all the time, I'm going to hopefully limit my questions. Can you comment on balancing the need to maintain competitive salary levels to retain valued faculty and administrators with reducing overall cost to keep college affordable for students?
Well, balancing a budget of any sort is challenging. One of the things we've tried to do, and I think have done successfully at SUNY, is really throw ourselves into shared services. When we say we have $100 million run rate, we're talking about savings that we accrue every year at a very high level. Why? So that we can continue to invest in the faculty and staff who serve our students. We live in a very competitive market in higher education. And interestingly enough, the public sector has to compete with the private sector. So when you look at the salaries, particularly those that always interest us the most, the high end, we're looking at doctors, we're looking at coaches, we're looking at top researchers whom we recruit from around the country. And they don't seem to pay as much attention about the economics of a state as they do the economics of post-secondary education. And that's where we compete. So to give us that margin of excellence, you invest in us, but we also invest in ourselves. We save money so that we can recruit the best and brightest in the world of physicians, in the world of all of our allied health professions, in the world of our top researchers, and yes, sometimes in the world of competitive collegiate athletics. But I dare say, and we're doing a study, once again, of compensation of our SUNY employees, that we are competitive, but at the lower end of the scale. We do the best we can to attract the best and brightest, given the resources that we have.
So you feel you're in a competitive market in at least the 3 areas you talked about, which are doctors, researchers, and coaches.
Well, and I will add to that, in my tenure at SUNY, I have recruited 47 campus presidents. This is a challenge by any standard because presidential salaries across the country, I believe, to be higher than most of ours. And the presidents who've been here longer and not experienced any kind of compensation increase now are compressed by those I've hired more recently who managed to attract a slightly higher salary. So we are trying our best to create a compensation program for our presidents that is competitive, which I would say we are not as competitive as we would like to be, and ensures that the savings we make go to support our leaders.
Legislature keeps looking at higher tuition burden on students, ballooning cost in higher education across the board. But what are we doing to address what is really 2/3 of the public university cost, and that's room and board?
Well, I think we try in every other area, the same in our room and board, to be competitive. You have a largely residential campus. Potsdam is a residential campus. Do you want to talk about increases in room and board lately?
We have not constructed new residence halls in the last several years, and we do try and maintain the costs for our residence halls. But we know that in addition to providing housing, the cost of the out-of-classroom experience for students is extraordinary. We know that out-of-classroom experiences, often in the residence halls, contribute to the rising cost of college, but it also contributes greatly to student retention and student success. And so we have put major investments in our student programming.
Yeah. Chancellor, can we focus in on that area, maybe take a 5-year picture and give so we could share it with the Senate Higher Ed Committee to look at over 5 years what those costs actually are?
Absolutely. We may not have it handy, but we have it available, and we'll share it with you and with the committee. We would welcome that opportunity.
Just the last issue, the tuition issue that my partner in the Assembly talked about. You know, rational tuition helps families plan for the future. And it does keep higher education costs kind of flat at whatever level we choose. So why should the legislature extend SUNY 2020, which again authorizes increases of up to $300 per student in tuition costs?
Well, as I mentioned before, and certainly President Mastro mentioned as well, tuition is a balancing act with the state's investment. If the state invests more, then we can charge less in tuition. So there are two things I think are really important here. The first of which is that NY SUNY 2020 is a safety net. It sets a cap. It makes planning for tuition more predictable for our students and protects them, because we have maintenance of effort, from any kind of state sweep to fill other budget gaps. But if the state were to increase its investment, our commitment is to ask our Board of Trustees not to increase the tuition either to the max of $300 or relative to the state's investment. I think that's what the Student Assembly has said quite clearly, but I think maybe you ought to repeat why the legislature would make this investment.
Yep. And to mirror the Chancellor, we see where our tuition dollar has gone the past 5 years. We've seen the increase in programming, the increasing in professors across our entire system. When looking at the numbers and when we worked with our Rational Tuition Task Force and Legislative Affairs team, in 1991, tuition went up by $650. In 1995, tuition went up by $750. In 2003, tuition went up by $950. This safety net that the Chancellor has developed is ensuring that our tuition does not go over $300. We have developed a Rational Tuition Task Force, which will be working with system administration to look at where our tuition dollars go from year to year within the next 5 years. And just to reiterate, the more state investment, like the Chancellor has stated, the lower our tuition will go up.
I love the fact that the Student Assembly has actually called on presidents to say, show me exactly where the rational tuition money went. And you have done so. This task force of the students is helping you do your work by making sure that we spend the money on our students.
I'm going to slip in one last question. How does the legislature deal with community college aid when many of the community colleges have declining enrollments?
So let's draw the enrollment picture first, because it's very important that we understand that picture.
Sure, and I think enrollment is a metric, but I will tell you it is not the metric to assess institutions by. And so I'll just take my institution as an example. So in 2010, that was one of our highest years of enrollment, and for every 100 students who walked in our front door, over 40 walked out the back door before that semester even concluded. We simply were not funded to address the challenges that they presented us. We put in place a number of policies to really address some of those challenges. We put in place registration deadlines. We put in place drops for non-payment so students wouldn't walk into a classroom with no sense of how they would pay for that course and then walk away before the term was over with bad debt. Many of my colleagues have done the same. It's a difficult decision to make because it is really changing your funding models and institution. We know we're being funded by FTE, so in many ways we have an incentive to gather as many FTE as possible, regardless of whether or not those students will be primed for success. Since that point, I can tell you our enrollment took a hit without question. But what didn't was our retention rate, which has gone up. Our GPAs have gone up. Our course completion rates have gone up. Our graduation rates have gone up. What has gone down is our student loan per average student and also our cohort default rate. Why? Because we were asking students to think of themselves as students before they came to us. I would hate to think that when we take steps like that to ensure more success for our students, then in some ways we are penalized for those decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Assemblyman Lubinacci, ranking.
Good afternoon, Chancellor.
Good afternoon.
The first question I have relates to some of the new programs that you spoke about. And the executive budget does provide for a transfer of $15 million to SUNY for a clean energy workforce opportunity program, and $3 million, you said, for the apprenticeship program. And I guess my question is, how does SUNY specifically want to use the $15 million, and is this considered one-shot revenue, and how will they sustain the program going forward?
Well, we have yet to see how this program is going to play out, but I think the first thing you would say is this is a very hot issue, and it's going to be good for the state that we are preparing more professionals to deal with energy management, and especially clean energy management. I think initially it can feed on top of programs that already exist, where we are doing clean energy training and workforce development, and we can do more of it. We can increase the use and creation of laboratories, but I'm guessing there's more detail to that, but it is an evolving idea. We welcome it. We think it's a hot topic for our students, and we'll distribute accordingly, probably competitively, as we are learning to do across our campuses.
Great, thank you. My next question has to do with international programs, and I know the past few years many of the campuses have increased the international student population and such, with obviously partnerships with the Dominican Republic and other schools.
Right.
And it's very competitive, obviously, to get into many of the SUNY campuses and colleges. Is there ever a choice where sometimes our in-state residents are turned away because of the seating for the international students, or are they allotted differently, or do we see, for example, our students within state sometimes not being able to succeed to get in?
It's interesting. New York is not a state that has a quota, as I've worked in other states that do. Our international population is under 10%. To my knowledge, it has not displaced any New Yorker. You have a pretty mature international program, President Jones?
Yes, at this juncture, our international enrollment at University of Albany is running about 7%. And we've set a very clear goal to try to double that in the years ahead. But I can say unequivocally, we give very high priority to New York residents. Our efforts to expand our international recruitment is not the expense of New York residents, but it's a reality of the shifting demographics that we see not only in the state of New York, but across the entire region, where the number of 10-year-olds that exist today are dramatically lower than it was 10 years ago, and will be lower even 10 years from now. So it's a shocking reality that we have to think differently about how we recruit our students, where they're going to come from, if we are going to be able to at least maintain the type of student body, the number of students that we have across our campuses. At University of Albany, we have more than enough room to accommodate all the students from New York that are interested in the programs that we have, and we work very hard to recruit more of those students, particularly the ones in the top 10% of their class. But I think our record clearly shows we are a gateway to opportunity for students from low social economic background. It's reflected in our graduation rates. It's reflected in the growing number of underserved students. But at the same time, we have many opportunities to recruit students from outside of the state of New York and internationally as well, and that is part of our strategic plan.
Good, especially as the international national reputation continues to build. It's important. Very good.
Exactly. Thank you.
And my last question, I guess, has to do with seating also, because for the past several budgets, we've spoken about the DREAM Act. And how is the forecasting been going if it becomes part of the budget process? How many students do you see that will benefit from the program? And is it, will seating or capacity be at play, or how are the schools planning on in terms of accommodating numbers?
Well, first of all, the SUNY Board of Trustees support was very early in its support for the DREAM Act, and we open our doors widely. We've been working with the Hispanic Latino caucus to really increase our opportunity for Hispanic students especially. I think we have some second language capacity that's going to really attract a lot of students. And we've got colleges and campuses, many in our community colleges, that are very capable and have an extensive second language program. So I think we are planning to see the cultural effects of a more diverse campus and looking to those populations to serve that interest.
Any forecasting in terms of a roundabout number you think the
I
SUNY system might?
off the top, but if we have forecasting, we're doing much more in strategic enrollment management, where I know that my good friend, the Chancellor of CUNY, is in the House, and we're also recruiting in New York City. We know that diversity, Kristen's student population this fall was 42%. Diverse, and she was recruiting from New York City. In my view, there are plenty of students and adults to go around. It is not competitive in the sense that we're actually taking away from each other. We're actually better serving the state of New York.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator?